Welcome everyone. My name is Chanel Nelson and I am the Central Penn Alumni Professional Development Committee Chair. Thank you for joining us in our final Alumni Professional Development for the year. This is our first year offering this series for our alumni, and we are extremely pleased with the success, and we look forward to granting access to new speakers in 2018 based on who you, our alumni, want to hear and what you want to hear about. So feel free to send me an email at cnelson@continentaloffice.com if you would like to be a speaker or recommend any speakers for our 2018 series. Today's webinar will discuss strategies to overcome and avoid career constipation, presented by our very own Alumni Council member and Professional Development Committee Chair, or Committee Member, Diane Weller. Diane is the founder and principal of Diane Weller Coaching. She is a native and resident of Central Pennsylvania, holding degrees in Computer Information Systems from Central Penn and Organizational Leadership from Penn State University. Her first career in IT spanned insurance, healthcare, and higher education, where she held various leadership roles for Penn State University and pioneered a staff telecommuting program. Diane is a practitioner of lifelong learning and personal reinvention and enjoys sharing insights gleaned throughout her journey to help others in their own journey. So we are so excited to hear from Diane today. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Please mute or turn off your videos. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to type them into the chat box and the control panel, and I will bring them up at the end of our Q&A portion. Also, feel free to join in on the conversation at #CPC Alumni. All right, so now I will go ahead and turn it over to Diane.
Good evening, Chanel, and thank you for that fine introduction. And good evening to everyone on the line. I'd like to take a second here and say kudos to all of you for taking the time, investing in yourself to learn about, hear about this topic we're going to discuss this evening. I'm really excited to be here. This is a topic that is real for many people, so I'm eager to have this conversation with you this evening. As a side note, I'm also super excited to unveil for the very first time, live with all of you on the phone tonight or on the line, my new business logo, which you will see at the top of this screen. Now, being somebody who really appreciates the gift of feedback, if you feel so inclined, I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you like about my logo? What doesn't work for you? Feel any time to put that in the chat box, or after the session this evening, send me a quick email. I'd love to hear your feedback. So thank you. So with that, let's move right into talking about career constipation. And I will share a bit of my own story with career constipation. So I started my career fresh out of school as a graduate of Central Penn College in 1983. Moved into my first programmer analyst position. I was having fun. I was happy, very happy for 7 years. That time I had spent both within the insurance industry and healthcare. But after 7 years, I moved into higher education at Penn State University. While at Penn State, I found many growth opportunities. I was super happy. And then something started happening. Like everyone else, I was just living life, going through the same routine, day in, day out. I was riding the carousel. Now, I didn't realize until about 25 years into my career that what I was doing was riding a carousel. Now, what do I mean by riding a carousel? What I mean is that daily routine, up in the morning, get kids ready for school. I had a long distance commute to my employer, a long day of work, a long distance commute back home. Weekends spent traveling to help care for my ailing mother. This was 18, 20 years of it, a period of time in my life that I never stopped to think about, am I happy what I'm doing? Who am I? What do I want to be doing? Those 18 or 20 years came without reflection. And then, as some important events in my life started coming together, like having the experience of parenting under my belt, having returned to school as an adult learner in organizational leadership, and having all those wonderful, juicy courses that I found myself so intrigued by, I noticed my professional interests were shifting, and this was getting stronger and stronger. And soon I was experiencing discontentment, which was getting stronger and stronger. I found myself asking the question, am I in the right place? Do I have the opportunities to do every day what I do best? What do I do best? Do I really know? I came to realize it was time to step back, reflect, listen, and discover more about me. And so at the beautiful age of 50 came clarity for me. My professional interests lied in the area of people development. And during this time, one of many quotes that inspired me, but I really wanted to share this one with all of you this evening, by George Eliot. It's never too late to be what you might have been. Now, this clarity that comes, it might not be age 50 for all of you. It might be age 50. It might be age 60. To those young professionals on the line tonight, or the traditional age students at Central Penn College, you're probably saying, oh my goodness, age 50, I'm going to have to wait that long before I become clear on what I want to do, what I want to be when I grow up. No, most likely it will not be age 50 for you. And this is why I'm here this evening, to provide you with some nuggets to help get you thinking about some things that you truly can avoid career constipation. So this evening we're going to talk about, why do we care about this topic? What are some causes and signs of career constipation? What does it mean to liberate your talents? And what are some tips to unblocking your career prospects? When we are not living in a place of career constipation, again, when we're not living in a place of career constipation, we have more positive and creative moments. We achieve more on a daily basis in all aspects of our life. We feel more fulfilled. And all of these things help to create for us a more blissful life. Your career determines the life you will live. Let me repeat that. Your career determines the life you will live. Some causes of career constipation. When you stay in your current job and employer and not move. Now, there are various reasons why one might stay with their current employer a long time. A perceived sense of security. Why do I highlight the word perceived? I'm going to challenge you this evening to think about what sense of security really means. And do we have guarantees of security today? You might also stay in your current job a long time because you fear change. Change can be scary. It can be difficult. It might be your self-limiting belief of, I can't, or any of the other many limiting beliefs that our heads tell ourselves. Or you might be one of those individuals who has the attitude, the perspective, you know, my job's okay, but I'm just really grateful to have a job at all. If you're one of those folks, I would like to acknowledge you for your gratitude. But I would also like to say, be careful. To settle with, I am grateful for what I currently have, is not opening you up to your full potential, to do and be your full potential. Now, the other category of causes of career constipation is lack of opportunities to progress where you are, for reasons such as positions are not being vacated, leadership holds on to instead of gives away responsibilities, or perhaps your organization is not in the business or no longer in the business of doing the work you've come to discover you want to do. So number one, if you look at that, it's really about you. And number two is about them. I'd like to ask the audience quickly, are there any other causes of career constipation that you would add to this list? You know, I speak publicly and I teach to learn myself. So if you could help build onto this slide for me, I would certainly appreciate that. Just quickly put it into the chat box. See if we have any other ideas here. And I see Madison is sharing with us feeling lost. That's a good one, Madison. Thank you for your input. Oh, and I see another one has come in from Kate. Job fatigue, working lots of hours and not feeling like I am moving forward. And Amanda, thank you for your input. These are all such real things that we experience. Thank you. Thank you very much for helping me to build upon my slide. So let's move on here and talk quickly about what are the signs of career constipation. If we can't recognize career constipation, how are we ever going to deal with it. So I have these categorized into the obvious and the subtle. But let me just say quickly, of course, it depends on the degree that you're experiencing each of these things. Excuse me, it might fall under the obvious, it might fall under the subtle. But things such as frustration, demotivation, you're disengaged at work, loss of productivity, you dread going to work. On the more physical side of things, lack of energy, perhaps a lack of enthusiasm. You're not smiling as often. That might seem a small thing, but it is huge. Perhaps you feel unsettled. I felt unsettled for almost 8 years. And lastly, you're short with your family. Here again, I'm going to quickly ask, can anyone add to this list?
Diane, I don't know if I would add to the list, but I think dreading to go to work is definitely a #1 sign of career constipation. And I mean, we have one life to live. If we spend a lot of time at work, and so when you get to the point where you're dreading going to work, you should just, it's really time to move on. It's not about the company, but it's about you. Regardless if they don't have the opportunities or maybe they're not living up to, what you want in that role or at that company, it's time for you to do something for you so that you can be engaged, be motivated, and have energy and have enthusiasm. So I would just like to comment on that. I'm glad you added that one there.
So well said, Chanel, and I believe somebody there in the chat box has agreed with you. And I want to highlight one particular thing you said, where you said what's important is you. Yes, we want to be concerned about our company, but you first have to be concerned about yourself.
I actually have a comment on that, Diane. This is Madison, by the way.
Yes, Madison?
I think that's something that I think a lot of us probably, at least for me anyway, is like fear of disappointing our loved ones. And I think that comes from like just a fear of disappointment in general, of like going after something and putting so much, time and love into something to find out it's exactly what you didn't want years down the road.
That is such a valid point, one that many people experience. And, just a real quick response to that, Madison. I believe it all comes down to shared understanding. If you can bring your loved ones, your family members, to understand where you're coming from, what your position is, what this means to you, I believe that will eliminate the disappointment.
Absolutely. I think that you have to surround yourself with a good support system. And I think all too often we rely on people that may not come from that understanding and that empathetic sense. But I think that you have to find the right people that'll support you, even people that you might not even have expected to support you. But later down the road, they're actually the ones who are the most understanding.
Yes, thank you again very much. What are some other signs of career constipation? Do you ever find yourself thinking, is this it? Is there more fulfilling work for me somewhere? Or perhaps you find yourself telling yourself, I know I have more to give. Now, as we think about making change, changing jobs, doing a complete transition in your career, whatever have you, there's some important first steps to prepare ourselves for something new. And I like to share here one of my favorite quotes from Oprah Winfrey. I just really, truly believe this. Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. I'm not a big believer in just pure luck. I do believe more so that we get, so to speak, lucky when our own preparation meets the opportunity that's out there. So the steps I would like to offer you tonight. Number one, make up your mind that you want it badly enough. If you don't want it badly enough, you are not going to receive it. And then spend that critically important time reflecting and ask yourself, what do I need to do to get my career moving forwards? And who or what would help? Seek the help of a mentor or mentors. We are all well advised to have multiple mentors, a coach, or a sponsor. Now, if you're not familiar with the term sponsor, a sponsor is quite simply that person who, let's say, goes above and beyond being a mentor. They're the person who will actually vouch for you and promote you. You also want to invest in some new learning. Keep yourself open to learning new things all the time. And then get clear on your natural talents. I will argue that the universe is full of opportunities waiting for you. So my question to you is, are you ready? So I'm talking about natural talent. What is a natural talent? A natural talent is an inherent ability. It is your God-given gifts. And importantly to understand, natural talent is not acquired knowledge or a learned skill. For example, to say, oh, I'm really good at math, that is not a natural talent. Math is something that you learned to do. And taking from business guru Peter Drucker, most people think they know what they are good at. They are usually wrong. And yet, a person can perform only from strength. And this is why I'm going to spend a lot of time with you this evening talking about learning more about your natural talents. What are some signs that you are not using your natural talents? Excuse me, I believe somebody has their microphone on. Could all participants make sure that you are muted? Thank you. So signs that you're not using your natural talents. You don't feel yourself thriving in the work that you are doing or other service to the world. Your work doesn't energize you. Perhaps you're struggling with your work despite your effort that you put into your work. Now, StrengthsFinder 2.0, this is a book that you can purchase, an assessment that you can take. I know many formal mentoring programs that use the StrengthsFinder book. I use it with all of my new clients. In there, they say people have several times more potential for growth when they invest energy in developing their strengths instead of correcting their deficiencies. Now, I'd like to ask you, are you tired of living in a world that revolves around fixing your weaknesses? Think about your time in school. Think about your time in the workplace, and come performance evaluation time. Where do our bosses, our managers, generally tend to spend most time talking with us? It's about our weaknesses, right? Oh, Diane isn't quite as strong in, I'm just going to throw something out there, time management. So let's provide her with some training in time management. And that probably wasn't the best example. It should probably be more of maybe a hard skill. But you see what I mean? Our society historically has focused more on the deficiencies of us humans than our strengths. Let me provide you with some examples of natural talents. And these are natural talents that are identified in the StrengthsFinder 2.0 book and assessment. You'll see that all three examples, I list 5. The reason I'm listing 5 is when you take this assessment, your immediate results, what StrengthsFinder will return for you, is your 5 top most dominant natural talents. This isn't to say you don't have other natural talents, but these are your 5 most dominant. Example 1 happens to be my 5 dominant natural talents: individualization, responsibility, deliberative, strategic, learner. Example number 2, competition, futuristic, activator, achiever, maximizer. These happen to be the 5 dominant natural talents of one of my daughters. And you see how different they look than my 5 dominant talents. Example number 3, the natural talents of one of my clients: maximizer, ideation, communication, individualization, and woo. Now, if you're not familiar with StrengthsFinder, you might be asking, what is woo? WOO stands for winning others over. Wow, the power in being able to win others over. So it's important that you recognize your natural talents, that you understand them, know what they look like, know what they feel like, know how you can best put them to use, how you can capitalize on them, refine them. And the StrengthsFinder book will walk you through all of these things of recognizing, understanding. It will give you action items to work on refining your natural talents. And then it will provide suggestions for how, if you team up with, okay, so for example, if I'm strategic and I team up with somebody who is, say, a maximizer or an activator, think of the power of bringing those natural talents together. So moving on here, some strategies to liberate your talents and unblock your career prospects. So what do we mean to liberate? Well, to liberate, we simply mean to free. So how are we going to free your talents? A couple suggested strategies here. Evolve the role you're currently doing to play to your strengths, values, and motivation. In other words, challenge the status quo. Just because Susie, who previously held your role, did it this way, for example, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to continue to perform or to do that role in the same way. Or number two, take some time to think about how you can learn new skills and improve existing ones that'll be useful to your future job while you're still in your current job. Offer to mentor others and continue your own professional development. You know, when we mentor others, we learn so much ourselves, and it's not an opportunity to make new connections for ourselves as well. This one I particularly love. Write your perfect job description. Has anyone ever done that? Sat down and wrote your perfect job description. It really does help to gain clarity on the work you want to do. And how about, comparing it with your current one, and then have a chat with your boss about, possible new responsibilities that you can get your teeth into. And lastly, volunteer for special project work or inquire about split roles. An example of a split role, and I had actually done this while I was at Penn State, one of my last years there. While I was still in my IT role, again, finishing my degree in organizational leadership, having moved into supervisory and managerial roles, having done a lot of mentoring, doing some peer coaching, I was really interested in people development. And so I sought out and I found the opportunity to partner with our HR director of our unit. And so my organization agreed that 60% of my time would be spent doing IT, and then the other 40% would be spent, again, working with HR on some special projects in the area of performance management, some new things that we wanted to introduce to our organization. So all great strategies to liberate your talents and unblock those career prospects. Now, as I was preparing for this webinar this evening, I was thinking, I really want to appeal to the young professional, who is eager for that progressive career, and tips I can give you to avoid career constipation. And I also want to be helpful to those in mid to late career. Again, remember, it's never too late to be what you might have been. But as I was thinking about my tips for these two different demographics, I found that so many of the tips I was coming up with really do apply to any of us, no matter what stage of career we're in. So these are the tips I'm going to offer tonight to all of you. Be your own advocate. And I'm going to pause there for a minute. These were the very wise words by one of my dear, dear mentors many years ago, when she said, "Diane, you need to be your own advocate." Folks, the day of finding a good employer, dedicating yourself, working very hard, they will recognize it, it will pay off. For the most part, those days are over. You need to really put yourself out there, be your own advocate, and be visible. Know and be able to describe, and again, that's the important piece, be able to describe your natural talents. Stay aware, informed, learned, read, and then always listen to the limiting beliefs in your head. Then choose to refuse. We all get stuck in our own heads. We all have heads full too often of those limiting beliefs, like I can't, for example. Become clear on what you want. Now I know that sounds simple and easy, but I also know, and from my experience in coaching, that's not always easy. Becoming clear on what you want is probably the number one thing that I work with my clients the most. It is possible. It's very easily possible to become clear. But sometimes you need the help of somebody else. Know your value proposition. What I mean by value proposition, what is it that you uniquely bring to the table? How can you help that person on the other end? Just as I suggested earlier, you might want to try writing your own job description. I would encourage you to write a value proposition for yourself. Now that value proposition might change a bit depending who the receiving party is, but still there will be lots of commonality even if you do have various versions. But sit down and write yourself a value proposition. Keep your career documents updated. Your resume, your LinkedIn profile, what have you. Treat them as living, working documents. Do what I didn't do throughout my career, is basically what I'm suggesting to you this evening. And then tell the world what you want to do. Again, and I'm going to address any other baby boomers that might be on the line this evening. You know, we were taught early in our careers, if you find your interest shifting, keep it hush. You don't want your boss to learn about that. It might jeopardize your job security. If they know I want to do something else, I might lose my job. Again, I would argue, for the most part, I think those days are over today. Indeed, it was because I got out there and told the world what I wanted to do, that opportunities started coming to me in the area of people development. So again, regardless of what stage of career you are in, take these 8 tips with you. Now I'm going to try and speak a little bit more directly toward the young professional who wants to avoid career constipation, and then also to the mid to late career professional. Young professionals on the line, share your aspirations with your leadership and be open about the support you need. For example, are there certain opportunities that if you had them, they would help you to grow with your aspirations? Or perhaps it's resources you need. Resources being time to work on special projects. It might be money for training, for books, what have you. And also ask for informational interviews. If you're not familiar with the informational interview, an informational interview is simply when you ask somebody, an experienced person in another field of work outside of what you are currently doing, you ask them for an interview to simply ask them about their job. What does it look like? What does their everyday or their normal day look like? What are the rewards of that job? So, for example, you might currently be in IT, but you're thinking, I think HR, human resources, really interests me. Ask a seasoned HR professional for that informational interview. Consider apprenticeships. And then lastly, volunteer. Again, volunteering is a great way to refine or gain new skills and make new connections for yourself. And then for the mid to late career professional, believe that changing from a job that directs your life to a career that fits the life you desire is possible. We weren't thinking about this when we got started in our careers, were we? Let's think about that a little bit more. Believe that changing from a job that directs your life to a career that fits the life you desire is possible. And then recognize your transferable skills. What were the skills you gained when you were working in IT that you can take with you when working in human resources? And talk to others who've gone through a career change themselves. Ask them for their story. Learn more about the experiences they had as they were going through that career change. And again, volunteer. So as we get close to wrapping up here with my message this evening, some closing thoughts for you. I encourage you to every day ask yourself these questions. The first one, what do I want more of or less of in my life? Remember, your career determines the life you will have. So what changes do you need to make with your career to have more of what you want or to get rid of what you don't want in your life? And every morning when you wake up, ask yourself, what will it be today? If you don't take control of your day, somebody else will. And in closing, another favorite quote from Peter Drucker, the best way to predict the future is to create it. I would like to offer you some recommended resources this evening. I read a lot of books, but as I was going through my library, I thought I believe these are the best, most relevant with the conversation this evening. We talked about StrengthsFinder. I highly encourage you, spend the $15, $16, it's somewhere in that price range, take the assessment, learn more about your natural talents. And then the 3 marriages, reimagining work, self, and relationship. This book was a huge help to me. You know, when I took my big scary leap to leave my career in IT and my employer of 24 years to go out on my own, it just really helped me to make sense of things, and it affirmed for me that I was on the right path for me. And then the 3rd book sounds a bit provocative. You Are a Badass: How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. Jen does an amazing job getting into our heads and trying to create shifts in our mindsets. Those limiting beliefs that we talked about earlier. If you want some help with shifting, moving into some new mindsets, read Jen's books. And what got you here won't get you there. One of the top sellers by leadership guru Marshall Goldsmith. And lastly, whether you're a current traditional age student, an adult learner who has returned to school, or you're an alum, remember your college career services office.
Oh.
And so with that, thank you very much for choosing to spend your time with me this evening. I hope this was helpful to all of you. Feel free to start a conversation with me on LinkedIn or email me on my contact information here, and I will open it up for questions or any closing thoughts anybody might have.
Diane, I'm just going to go back to the book list for one of our participants, and then I'll read through some of the questions that we received. One, Madison asked, are strengths overlooked possibly because they don't best apply to our job or career?
Are they, would you repeat that once more?
I can repeat it if you want, Diane.
Okay.
Sure, thank you.
So basically, like, the strengths that you have, they're not best applied to the position that you're in because you went into it because of an interest and not just because of your strengths.
Correct.
So how would you better apply those strengths then?
Again, the first step is coming to know what they are and understanding them. And, you know, if you find that your natural talents lend themselves better to another type of vocation, and this is exactly what happened with me, then that's a sign that perhaps I should consider changing my vocation. But back to my earlier point too, perhaps there are ways that you can do that current job a bit differently so that it allows you to capitalize on your strengths. Does that make sense, Madison?
Yes, that definitely helps a lot. It's just trying, I guess, to transfer those strengths into like better ways to fit your role. So yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I would like to add too, here again, we need to be our own advocate. Don't expect your leadership, your manager, to know and understand your natural talents. It's your responsibility to know them, understand them, and work with those around you to find those opportunities to use those natural strengths.
Great. And we had one other question listed for Susan, and I know that she received some other comments in the chat bar, but she said if you could talk more about volunteering and why should we do it?
You know, Susan, and thank you for that good question. Throughout my entire career, I heard you shouldn't volunteer, you should volunteer. And as much as I wanted to, I never took the time. It's like, you know, I have so many other things going on. I am now in a position that I can volunteer. And again, through volunteering, it gives us the opportunity to either refine our current skills, to gain new skills. It gets us in touch with people new to us so we can create new relationships. And we never know what opportunity lies behind a new relationship, whether that opportunity being that new person we're now connected with can connect us to another person. And, you know, I believe for most volunteers, too, it just gives this heartwarming sense of satisfaction and reward, knowing that, you know, we've helped this other person or this other group in society with the work that they need to do and the challenges that they're having.
And Diane, I would add to that too with volunteering. I think for me, when I was at a stage where I was trying to figure out where my career was going, I enjoyed what I was doing, but thought that maybe I should be doing more. I looked at what opportunities outside of work would give me that fulfillment. And, you know, being on a board is very critical, I think, for just continued development. It's great for networking, but it also gives you the opportunity to lead in ways that, you know, may not be available in your current role or at the company that you're at. And also just being able to make mistakes that won't get you fired, but providing that opportunity for you to learn from. So I think, you know, being on boards as a way of volunteering is definitely important in our professional lives.
Such excellent points, Chanel. Thank you. And as you're talking, another one popped up for me too. You know, by branching out there and doing some new work on a volunteer basis, it just might, you know, help you come to discover another line of work that you might enjoy more so than the work you're currently doing, the paid work you're currently doing. So it could be an avenue of self-discovery.
Definitely.
These are all really good questions. Do we have any more?
Diane, I actually have another question for you.
Uh-huh.
So a point that I really liked that you made was about writing the perfect job description. So my question to you is, to find a job that best fits what you want, how do you balance realistic expectations versus what you want? Like, do you base it off the job market or do you base it off personal interest?
Oh, I love that question. And I'm just wondering, is this Madison?
Yes, this is Madison.
Correct?
Yeah, I asked a lot of questions, guys.
That's great. I love questions. Think about this. Is it really important or necessary that you have that balance? Why can't you move full speed ahead with writing that job description that you want, that really feels like your place in the world? Yes, we always need to consider what the organization we're trying to get into, you know, what their business line is, and it needs to make sense. There needs to be a fit, a match between what their business line is and what we want to do. But again, I would encourage you to think about Make it what you want to be, where you know you can perform the very best that you can, where you can be that best version of yourself. Another mentor once told me, Diane, your job is only 50%. Wait, how did she say this? Your formal job description makes up only 50% of the job you do. The other 50% is what you make it. So I would encourage you, Madison, to think about that and present some new ideas to your leadership for what the new version of your job might look like.
Okay, great. Thanks for answering my question, Diane. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Looks like we're coming to the end here with only 4 minutes left. I think we covered all the questions that came in on the chat bar, but Diane, did you have anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
I don't believe I do. I would just like to say thank you again to everyone, and I wish you all a great evening. And go out there and make the career and life that you want for yourself.
All right, perfect. And I also put up a slide, again, if anyone's interested in being a speaker in 2018, or if you have a topic idea, feel free to email me. My email is listed there. This webinar will also be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel. So if you know someone that may benefit from it, or you may just want to revisit it in the future, you'll always have access to it. So we just thank you, everyone. Again, we appreciate you being here and making our series a success. Just a quick reminder, we do have 2 final alumni events for the remainder of the year. Our homecoming weekend is October 20th through the 22nd, and the Alumni Association New York bus trip is on December 2nd. So check out our Facebook page or the Alumni Central PIN website for more details and to register. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you have a great evening.